child and Sandy were in cribs. They tied them to the bunks so that they wouldn't slide. They took all the luggage out of the cabin. They told me to sleep with Patty on the lower bunk and not let her get in the upper bunk. And they left. And pretty soon, all of a sudden, not just with a little ripple warning, just all of a sudden the ship went like this. Everything in the galley, everything, mustard, ketchup, vinegar, everything all over the floor. They hadn't had time to batten it down yet. One sailor fell down a ladder, meaning a stairway you're not allowed to say, and broke his leg. It was a mess, and from then on, it did that all night. You had to stay in bed. I can see why they tied the crib to the side of the bed, because I'd hit it, and then you slept all night long. Yeah. And so did Sandy. And I went walking and met sailors and people working, and came back, and you'd both still be sound asleep. When we woke up, the captain, we went to get as whatever breakfast they could muster for us, and the captain comes on again. Now hear this, now hear this. We have sighted a mine, and we are turning about to Sing Sing. Well, that was too much. They wouldn't let us go up on deck, but our porthole looked right out on it. And it was a huge, when the waves were so high that when it went up, it was way, way up above us. And then it would be way, way, way down below us. And it was very formidable looking. But the Marines up on board got up on the upper deck, shot their rifles at it, and it just quietly, we thought it might explode, but it just quietly sank out of sight, so that was the end of that. We arrived in China eventually, and
was Dad there to meet us?
My husband met us. We flew, we got off of the ship in Shanghai and flew to the airport outside Tsingtao, where he met us and took us home. And we had our first sight of our home, which was just gorgeous. A huge, very large house with a brick wall all the way around it, a gate that said the Voss Camp on it. And that's an interesting story because Tsingtao is a city where the Chinese took over, the Japanese took over, the British took over, the Russians took over. Now the Americans are here. We were very lucky to get wonderful servants because we had Wong the cook, and he could cook anything, borscht, Yorkshire pudding, anything. Whether it was British, whether it was Russian, whether it was, and his Chinese dinner every once in a while. We'd say, we'd like Chinese dinner tonight. Well, we like Chinese dinner tonight. So we have Chinese dinner tonight. And off he'd go and shop and cook the best Chinese dinner. This house had been a barracks for America's Marines before we got there. And there was a downstairs and an upstairs. You came into a center hall, went into our house, our part of the house from there, and upstairs to the upper part of the house. And there were two families, our family, and now another one had arrived, and that was the McIntyres. He was this commanding officer of the whole group. And so we had their family and our family in the same house, and the men who had been living there, the BOQ, were all officers, and they'd come back and they'd have a drink with us at 5 o'clock, and they'd stay for dinner. We just had a good time. And the first time we ever went out for dinner, we were invited to the house of the mayor of Tsingtao. And I was the only woman at the dinner table. Their women are not allowed to eat with them, evidently. I had no conception of what to do, or what to eat, or what I was going to have. They had roast duck. It was such good food. And the mayor carved it with 2 big chopsticks, carved the duck. Slices and everything. I couldn't believe it. And put it in your bowl, which you had at the table previously with rice in it. He gave me the head of the duck along with some meat, and I had no notion what to do with it, so I buried it under the rice. And when I got home that night, I told the guys, and they said, "Oh, that's the delicacy of the whole meal. You were the guest of honor. You got the head." I didn't get the head. We had an interesting life. There was always something social going on all the time as more and more people arrived. The Thieves Market downtown, we could go and buy anything for about, anything from $1 to $10. I bought a beautiful coffee table that I still have, as the girls know, in the living room for $10. It was out on the street, and it had been in the elements for ages, covered with snow, covered with rain. It was almost white. It was so horrible. And they gave me some banana oil to put on it, and it's been a beautiful coffee table ever since. After, I think, 7 or 8 months, because we went there on Sandy's birthday in '46.
Didn't Sandy learn to talk there?
Oh, you want to know about that? Yes, Sandy was only a year old when we went over and was just learning English words and trying hard to learn. But when we left there, I realized she'd had a Chinese ama. I told you about Wong. We also had an ama for the children so that I could go out anytime I wanted to, and she would take care of them. We had Peanuts, who waited on the table, helped Wong in the kitchen, played with the girls. They all thought our children were pretty cute. And Sandy could learn to talk in China. The only thing is she learned to talk Chinese, and I didn't. And Patty did too, so Patty was the interpreter. Sandy would say something, and I'd have to say to Patty, "What'd she say?" We got on the ship to come home, and Sandy went, "Blah, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "What'd she say?" Patty said, "She has to go to the bathroom." I said, "Well, for goodness sakes, let's take her." So we got along well, and we had a big time out there, and Sandy loved our Jeep. We had a wonderful vehicle to ride around in that the Marines built and put a cover over it. I've got pictures of Sandy sitting at the wheel of that Jeep. She would ride it, thought she was driving it for hours on end.